Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today we are doing something called the Reks damage test. So what I want to do is I want to kind of test out like how big is Reks damage actually, right? And so what I like doing with some of these units, especially units that have AoE damage, is to go into this Bahamut fight here. So this is the what is it? The World of Illusions Divine Bahamut, and this is just a Lufenia plus fight. But the reason why this is a good one to do damage testing on is because the ads will never die. So we can do a burst phase and we will have the ads alive the entire time. So we can see this hypothetical situation. If we had 3 enemies alive the whole time, how big can we get a burst phase on this guy? Now I'm going to tell you this right now. This actually took me a few attempts to get done. Just because Bahamut is really annoying actually because he has a Lufenia orb. And it's got a very short counter on it. And what happens is this team does so much damage that I actually had a couple of runs where Bahamut's Lufenia orb is normally 3 turns, which is fine, because then he has different thresholds, you just burn through it, and then the orb will go off and then come back on, things like that. Well, the last threshold, the orb is at 1 turn. And what happens is I'm usually in the middle of a force time, like setting up for the big damage, and one of my attacks pushes Bahamut into the last threshold, and it's just happened like 2 runs in a row where I attacked Bahamut into his last threshold when it was actually about to be his turn. So the orb pops up in as at 1, and it's instantly his turn, and he wipes me, right? So what I found I had to do, because this is only a Lufenia plus, the boss is going to be pretty fragile. So I would say that Reks could be set up even better than what I get him in this video. Because I could actually echo more before he goes into burst phase, start off on a higher gauge, but I have to kind of rush into it because, and you're going to see here in this video, even rushing into it, Bahamut actually had 1% HP when I go into the burst phase, which is kind of crazy, but ultimately I do get the setup I want. So the idea is I want a core burst effect up, I want Eris burst effect up while she's got her laser maxed out. So the idea is I'm getting off turn core, off turn Aerith, and Reks is packed with the Rain's Call, so that I'm going to be launching while Rex's BT effect is up and he's doing double follow-up. So I'm just going to say this right now. I'm not going to tell you what the final number is, but this actually does become the biggest burst phase I have ever done on DFFOO. And for reference, my previous video where I did this and did my highest amount of damage, I want to say it was 400 million. It was like 400 and something million, which is a crazy amount of damage, right? So we're going to see what we can do here with Reks. So what I did here, and this is kind of the rush version, so I actually went into Reks BT effect first, and then I'm going to go into Force after, and then do a little bit of Echo, and then basically the next Reks turn is I will go into Force and then kind of go from there and then get his BT effect, or his burst phase up, right? Now, ideally, the way I would like to set this up is to hit Reks Force first, Echo with the other 2 characters, and then on Rex's first turn and force time to use his burst attack, and then on his second turn, then I would do Rains into burst phase, right? But what I had to do here was I actually had to pop burst effect first, because what I found would happen when I did it the other way, the force gauge is ramping too much, and by the time I do a Reks burst attack, I'm doing too much damage to the enemies, and he's getting into those weird thresholds, and it just didn't work out. And I found out this one, even where I rushed into it a little bit more, I almost killed the boss before I was set up. So very glad I could at least get it. So at least to some extent. Now, I would have to do a little bit more research. There might be a better fight to do this on. That's maybe a little bit stronger, a little bit tankier, where I could still keep 3 enemies up for most of it. But I thought this was still a pretty good run, just to show you what kind of damage Reks can do. And I think what this video is going to show is, yes, right now, Reks is a top-tier DPS in this game. I don't know if there's another character I can put up more damage than I did with Reks in this video. Like, it's actually kind of crazy how good he is in terms of damage. Now, you might say, well, why aren't people more hyped for Reks? Well, the reason why, and I talked about this, he's a pseudo-tank, but he's not like a main tank. So, he's not really desirable as like a pure tank. And his damage, while being very good, he's going to, like, Astos is the thing. People know Astos is coming. And Astos right now is scheduled for August. Now, if they don't slide in a global first, like I think they might be doing, if they're not going to slide in anything and just let us be like a little bit ahead, Astos could actually slide into like the end of July. But right now, I think he's slated for like end of August is where he's right now. But right now, we're ahead of schedule. So I would expect him sooner than that, unless they start sliding in some bonus celebrations or they do stuff around those campaign characters in between, right? Which we're definitely going to know a lot more after the next community stream. I did get a lot of comments on that video, by the way. Some people kind of agreeing with me, thinking that yes, it could happen. Most people say no, not going to happen, and sure, probably won't happen. That's just me being optimistic. I know somebody was commenting that Squeck said they're not going to ever do a global first again, and I think like a new character, which I do think I remember that being said, so that might actually be the case. But I would still say, hey, why couldn't they just go back on it anyways and just do it? It would be even more of a surprise. But I still think what's in play is this idea of maybe they could do a joint celebration. Like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, because JP's got like the new crystal upgrades or whatever. So why not just give us our version of Clive, and then JP would just have the buffed version with the new crystal upgrades and whatever, and just slightly reworked so that he fits in with their timeline. I don't think it's impossible, to be honest. Anyways, here's the part we want to see. So we're at 638%, jumping into a Reks burst. You see Bahamut's at 1%, so we barely got into this thing. But now that we're in it, we're going to have full damage the whole way through, and everybody's going to live the whole way through. And we do have launching active, right? So we're going to just take a look at some of these insane numbers. So we just did a 16 mil launch there, which is actually in its own right very good. And that's not counting these follow-ups that start his turn, right? So he just did a double 7 mil, and it's not just like single target. This is AoE double 7 mil. So we just did 14 million, and you could times that by 3 because we did it to 3 targets. And then you can count in this damage here, which is going to do more single target damage on the launching. So we took that initial 14 mil, add 22 mil onto that. So that was what? Almost 40 mil we just did to Bahamut, plus a huge chunk to the side. Dude, the amount of damage here is actually like astronomical that Reks is doing. It's kind of crazy. And I'm not doing this video to try to convince people to pull. I think I would still stand by my original should you pull thoughts on this guy. I think he is skippable. Like, you don't have to have him. The fact that he's not like must have as a tank, he's just got really good damage. So I think, like I said in my should you pull video or my pull planning, if you're in need of a DPS, I think between Reks, General Leo, Tifa, like a character like that, you just pick 1 or 2 of them and you're good to go with whatever you want there. But I still think characters like Rem and Iris are more valuable than Reks because they're generic supports that work on any team and very flexible to use for a long time, and they are going to last a little bit longer, right? Because Rex's tanking isn't like the craziest. It won't like age crazy well like a Gladio tank, which is just you don't die. 22 mil there, by the way. Pretty crazy damage, and we're up to almost max force gauge at this point. And then Reks just hopping in with a double 10 mil AoE, so that's 20 mil to all targets, right? So if you look at that in terms of total damage dealt, before he even took his turn, he did 60 million damage, right? Now we're talking Tifa levels of damage output, right? So but this is before turn. So now we take that 60 million and we can add this onto it, which we can see what this damage looks like here. So then we've got 60 plus another 35 plus 25 on the ends. That's insane. 35, I mean, that's like another 80 mil. So what? We just did 140 million damage on that turn. Like 140 or 150 million damage on one turn. Okay? That's, if you add that damage to all 3 enemies combined, it's kind of bananas, right? Now, Tifa still will outdamage this guy's single target because Tifa could do 75 mil to 1 target. This guy did like 150 mil, but he needed 3 targets to do that, right? And then obviously every target you take away, the damage significantly decreases. But even what we saw to the single target, it was what, 20-something mil plus a 35? That was still 50-something mil to just Bahamut on that turn, which is very good damage. Now look at this burst phase, you guys. 577. We just did a 577 mil burst phase. I definitely think if I had time to properly set up, I think we could have got 600 mil with this guy. absolutely bananas. So let me know what you think of my boy Reks here, but we just put up nearly a 600 million burst phase. My mind is just blown on how crazy this guy is. And I'm going to say this right now. I did and I know my screen's black right now, kind of boring. Here, what I'll do is I'll refresh it so it can kind of just go in the background as I give some last thoughts here. But what I'm going to say is I actually did Rex's Shinryu twice. Because I didn't fully understand the fight the first time. I actually got killed. And it's not a hard fight by any means. It was just me not understanding the fight enough. I just went in with the team and didn't read. But the way the current Shinryu works is the enemies have like 3 different thresholds that you cannot damage them beyond that until they do an attack. And what happens is when they reach the threshold, they will counter with the attack. So they do it instantly and you're good to go. So what I did in my first Shinryu attempt was I did kind of like a bum rush where I went in and set up a really nasty burst phase with Reks, just like I did here. And what I found out, and this is a 2-target fight, what I found out at the end of that burst phase, which made me want to do this video, I did a 500 million burst phase on 2 enemies in that video. I'm not going to upload it because I ended up dying in the run, but I just wanted to tell you guys I did 500 mil with Reks on the current Shinryu. The reason I lost was because then I came out of it, and then the enemies basically just hit Reks twice in a row, and Reks covered, and he took half of his health and damage each time, and Reks actually got killed. And that's why people don't like Reks as a main tank. He can still get caught. So that's what happened in that video. I was just trying to get to another force time. Enemies took a couple turns in a row, and Reks did his cover thing, which actually ended up being bad because they were targeting other characters, and they were split. So had each attack hit a different character, I would have been fine. But since Reks jumped in front of both, it actually was a negative. He took both and killed himself. So that was quite unfortunate in that video. But I did want to say I got the 500 mil burst phase. So what I do in my actual Shinryu run, which I think I'm going to put up tomorrow, is I just take a more normal approach. It's pretty much a similar team. It's just I don't do a burst phase, and then the enemies are free to counter me, and we just blow it up like no problem. Really easy, right? So anyways, guys, let me know what you think of this 577 mil burst phase. Let me know if you've gotten higher than this with Reks or if you've seen a higher one. But like I said, I feel like 600 mil is possible. I would just need to have a fight where that is tanky enough to let me set up more properly. But I thought this was a pretty successful damage test to show that, yeah, Reks is a top tier damage dealer. Holy cow. So anyways, thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.